My sister swapped my painting before a competition to humiliate me. The judges called it a masterpiece. My sister Genevieve has been jealous of me since I picked up a paintbrush at 7 years old. Our parents put us both in art classes. She quit after 2 months. I stayed for 12 years. I got better. She got bitter. By the time we were adults, I was showing work at local galleries and she was telling people at family dinners that art was a waste of time. Genevieve was 2 years older with a steady office job and she held that over me at every opportunity. She'd ask how my little paintings were going. She'd ask if I'd sold anything. She'd ask when I was going to get a real career. She did it in front of relatives. She did it on holidays. She did it loud enough for everyone at the table to hear, and then she'd smile like she was just being supportive. Then I got accepted into the Hargrove Regional Art Competition. Hargrove is a juried show that draws entries from 5 states. First place comes with a $10,000 prize, a feature in a regional arts magazine, and gallery representation for a year. I'd applied 3 years in a row and never made it past the first round. This time I made it to the final exhibition, 20 artists. I spent 4 months on my submission. A large oil painting of a woman standing in a flooded sunroom, water up to her ankles, holding a coffee cup and staring out a window. Realistic, detailed, soft morning light through the glass. Every reflection on the water rendered by hand. It was the best thing I'd ever painted. I told my family at a Sunday dinner. My parents were proud. Genevieve said good luck and didn't make eye contact. The paintings had to be delivered 2 days before opening. I wrapped mine and drove it to the Hargrove Center myself. I handed it to the intake coordinator and watched them carry it to the back room. Genevieve called the next day and asked to see the venue before the show. She said she wanted to support me. She had never used the word support about my art in her life, but I wanted to believe she meant it. I gave her the address and the intake coordinator's name. She said she might stop by. The exhibition opened on a Friday. I walked in with my parents and my boyfriend, Theo. We made our way through the gallery. Landscapes, portraits, sculptures, mixed media. Beautiful work. I was nervous. Then we got to my spot. The painting hanging under my name was not mine. It was a canvas covered in what looked like a child's finger painting. Random streaks of red and black and yellow smeared across the surface with no pattern. Handprints in the corners. A long drip of purple running down the center. My name was on the placard underneath. I stood there staring at it. Theo asked if that was my piece. I said no. My mother asked what happened to the original. I said I didn't know, but I did know. I knew exactly who had access, exactly who asked about the venue, and exactly who would think this was funny. Genevieve wasn't at the exhibition. She didn't come to support me. She came the day before to swap my painting with something she'd made in 5 minutes. Something so ugly she thought I'd be humiliated in front of judges, artists, and everyone who came to see the show. She wanted me to stand in that gallery next to a smeared mess with my name on it and feel like a fool. The judging was already underway. The pieces had been evaluated the night before during a private viewing. Whatever damage Genevieve intended was already done. I stayed for the rest of the exhibition because I refused to leave. My parents walked the gallery with me. Theo held my hand. I looked at the painting my sister had smeared together and I felt sick. Then Sunday came. The award ceremony was held in the main hall of the Hargrove Center. All 20 artists were there. The head judge, a curator named Margot Tremaine, stood at the front and began announcing the results. Third place went to a sculptor from upstate. Second place went to a photographer who did portraits of factory workers. Then Margot read my name. I didn't move. Theo nudged me. My mother grabbed my arm. Margot said the judges were captivated by my piece. She said it was a bold departure from conventional technique. She said the raw application of color, the deliberate handprints, and the unapologetic rejection of form represented exactly what the Hargrove competition was created to celebrate. She called it visceral. She called it confrontational. She said it demanded a response from the viewer, and that's what great art does. The judges gave first place to the painting my sister made to destroy me. The smeared, handprint-covered, dripping mess she created out of spite was interpreted as a deliberate, artistic statement. And because my name was on the placard, the $10,000 prize was mine. The magazine feature was mine. The gallery representation was mine. I accepted the award. I gave a short speech thanking my parents and Theo and said the piece came from a deeply personal place. That was true. It came from my sister's jealousy, and it won me everything she tried to take away. Genevieve found out that evening. My mother called the family group chat with the news. Genevieve didn't respond for 2 days. Then she called me. Her voice was sweet when I picked up, almost gentle, like she was calling to check in on a sick friend. Hey, congrats on the win, Genevieve said. That's really something. I said thank you. I kept my voice even. The sweetness lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then her tone changed. It got harder, flatter, like she was reading from a script she'd been practicing for 2 days. You know that painting isn't yours, she said. You know I made it, so we need to figure out how you're going to make this right. I said, what exactly do you mean by make this right? Genevieve didn't hesitate. The money, the magazine, the gallery spot, she said. You give it back, or you split it, because that was my work, up on that wall. Part of me, and I hate admitting this, felt a flash of guilt, like some small trained part of my brain heard my older sister telling me I owed her something and automatically started calculating how to give it to her. Years of being the younger sister builds this little reflex where you just hand things over to keep the peace. But I caught myself. You swapped my painting to humiliate me, Genevieve, I said. You didn't submit a piece. You sabotaged mine. She fired right back. It doesn't matter why I did it. The judges picked my painting. That's my win. I told her the painting was entered under my name, judged under my name, awarded under my name. Every piece of paper, every record, every photo from that night had my name on it, not hers. Then she said it. So you're just going to steal my work and pretend you made it? Something about the way she said that, the way she really believed it, made me go still. She actually thought I was the one doing something wrong. Something clicked. I said, you walked into that building to destroy something I spent 4 months creating. You wanted me to stand there and feel like nothing. And instead, you handed me the biggest win of my career. That's not my problem. That's yours. The line went quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear someone realizing they don't have an answer. For the first time in our lives, Genevieve had nothing to throw back at me. Then her voice came back, low, cold. If you don't give me what's mine, she said, I'll call the competition and tell them exactly what happened. I'll tell them the painting they awarded wasn't made by you. I'll tell them you're a fraud. My chest went tight. The word fraud landed hard because somewhere deep down down, I knew the painting wasn't mine either, but I didn't let that show. And you'll have to explain how you broke into a competition venue and tampered with an entry. Think about that, Genevieve. She hung up. For about 10 minutes, I sat on my couch and I felt like I'd won that round. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Oakland, my mom. Genevieve just called me crying. She says you stole something from her. What is going on? The ground moved under me. Genevieve didn't need to call the competition. She didn't need to file a complaint. She just needed to call our mom. She just needed to cry. She just needed to say the right words in the right tone and let Oakland do what Oakland always does, which is try to fix things by making me bend. I called Oakland immediately. The phone barely rang once. Your sister is very upset, Oakland said. She says the painting that won wasn't actually yours. Is that true? That tone. The one she uses when she's already decided someone is in trouble but wants to give them a chance to confess first. I used to fold under that tone. Not this time. That's true, I said. The painting that won wasn't the one I submitted. Someone swapped it. Oakland paused. Who would do that? She asked. And there it was. The opening I needed. I didn't accuse. I didn't yell. I just asked one question. Who asked me for the venue address the week before the show, Mom? Silence. The heavy kind. The kind where someone is connecting dots they really don't want to connect. Genevieve told me she went to see the gallery, Oakland said. She said she wanted to surprise you. She surprised me all right, I said. She replaced my painting with a finger painting. She did it to make me look like a joke in front of the judges and every artist in that room. Oakland took a sharp breath. That can't be right. It is right. My painting was gone. There was a smeared canvas in its place. Ask her what she did with my original. Oakland said she'd call me back. That hour was one of the longest of my life. When she called back, she sounded like she'd aged 5 years. She says she was trying to teach you a lesson about not taking things so seriously. A lesson. Like she was doing me a favor. She destroyed 4 months of my work and tried to humiliate me at the biggest event of my career. Mom, what lesson was that? Oakland didn't answer right away, and that silence told me everything. I think you two need to sit down and talk, she finally said. Her go-to move. Her all-purpose solution for everything from borrowed sweaters to this. Fine, I said, but it happens on my terms. I'm not sitting in Genevieve's apartment listening to her tell me why I should feel bad for winning something she tried to take from me. She said Saturday dinner at the house. Everyone would be there. An hour later, my dad called. Galahad. He didn't sound angry. He sounded confused, like someone had just told him the sky was green. I don't understand why your sister would do this, he said. Because she's been jealous of my painting since we were kids, Dad, I said. She quit and I didn't, and she's never forgiven me for that. I don't think anyone had ever said it to him that plainly before. We all knew it, but nobody ever said it out loud at the dinner table or in any space where it would have to be dealt with. Finally, Galahad spoke. Your mother wants everyone together Saturday. I think that's a good idea. Then he said something he had never said in my life, but I want you to know what Genevieve did was wrong. You earned that spot. My throat got tight. My eyes burned. My whole life, both parents had treated us like we were on perfectly equal ground, even when she was cutting me down. They never picked sides. They just wanted peace. But right there on that phone call, Galahad picked a side. He looked at what Genevieve did and he said it was wrong, out loud, to me. 2 days before Saturday dinner, I got an email that made my whole body go cold. It was from Margot Tremaine's assistant. The committee had received an anonymous inquiry questioning the authenticity of the first place entry. They were requesting a brief in-person meeting before the magazine feature went to print. Genevieve. She didn't call the competition directly like she'd threatened. She didn't put her name on anything. She sent an anonymous message. She found a way to throw a grenade without leaving her fingerprints on it, or at least she thought she did. I called Theo. I just started talking because if I stopped to think I was going to spiral. If they asked me to talk about the painting, I can't describe what I made because I didn't make it. I can't talk about brush technique on a painting that was made with someone's hands. Theo was quiet for a second. You don't have to describe the technical process. You describe the intent. You describe what you wanted the viewer to feel. The judges already told you what they saw in it. Lean into that. That feels like lying, Theo. Your sister committed fraud. You didn't. You showed up, your name was on the wall, and the judges chose you. The lie is what Genevieve did, not what you're doing. 2 days later, I drove to the competition center. The building looked different when it wasn't full of people. My shoes made sounds on the polished floor that seemed way too loud. Margot Tremaine was already sitting at the table when I walked in, calm, put together. Professional in a way that wasn't cold but wasn't warm either. She had a folder open in front of her and a cup of tea to her left. Thank you for coming in, she said. We received a note suggesting your entry may not have been created by you. Can you walk me through your process? I took a real breath. I made a decision in that moment. I wasn't going to lie, but I wasn't going to hand Genevieve a win either. The piece was deeply personal, I said. It came from years of being told that my art didn't matter by someone very close to me. Someone who spent a long time trying to make me feel like what I do is worthless. The raw, unpolished quality was intentional. It was a rejection of the expectation to be perfect. I wanted the piece to feel like something that had been made with urgency, not precision. Something that came from emotion and not from trying to impress anyone. Margot listened without interrupting. She didn't write anything down. When I finished, she nodded once, slowly. Then she shifted forward. The note we received claimed someone else made the painting. Do you know who might have sent that? I held her gaze. I have a guess. And if that person wants to come forward and explain how they had access to the competition venue and swapped a registered entry, I'd welcome that conversation. Margot's eyebrows went up. Are you saying someone tampered with your submission? I'm saying the piece on the wall is not the one I delivered, but the judges chose it, and I'm standing by that. The room went quiet. Margot looked at me for what felt like a full minute. Then she said something I did not see coming. I've been curating for 22 years. I've seen artists sabotaged before. If what you're telling me is true, the person who sent that note just confessed to tampering with a juried competition. That's a serious matter. She closed the folder in front of her. She hadn't looked at it once during the entire conversation. Your prize stands. The magazine feature stands. And if the anonymous source contacts us again, I'll be asking very different questions. She stood up and shook my hand. There was something in the way she looked at me that felt like respect. I walked out into the parking lot and sat in my car for a long time with my hands on the steering wheel. Genevieve had sent that anonymous message thinking it would blow everything up. Instead, all she did was put herself on the radar of a woman who knew exactly what what sabotage looked like. Every move Genevieve made was making things worse for her and better for me. Saturday came, and I drove to my parents' house. Theo was already there. The house smelled like roasted chicken and garlic, which meant Oakland had been cooking since noon. That's what she does when she's stressed. I found her in the dining room with the nice plates out, the ones she only uses for holidays. Galahad was at the counter with a glass of water, not really doing anything. The energy in the house was tight, like the air before a storm. Oakland pulled me into a hug, and while she was holding me, she leaned in close and whispered, "Please don't make this worse than it has to be." I pulled back and looked at her face, and I realized Oakland wasn't on my side. She wasn't on Genevieve's side either. She was on the side of making this go away as quickly and quietly as possible. She was already framing this as a both sides issue. 20 minutes later, the door opened and Genevieve walked in. She looked collected, practiced, like she'd stood in front of a mirror and rehearsed looking reasonable. She hugged Oakland long, the kind of hug that says be on my side without using words. She said hi to Galahad in a soft voice with a sad little smile. She barely looked at me. She sat down across from me, folded her hands, and said, "I'm glad we're all here. I think it's time we talked about what happened." Like she was the reasonable adult in the room who had brought everyone together to sort out a problem. "I went to the gallery to see my sister's painting," she said, voice even and measured. "I thought it would be funny to swap it with something silly. A prank, that's all it was. I didn't think the judges would even look at it twice. I definitely didn't think it would win." She paused for effect, then she turned to Oakland and her eyes got wet. "I made that painting, and now she's keeping the prize and the recognition for something I created. That's not fair." Oakland's face crumbled. She looked at me with this expression that said, "Please just give her something so we can all go home and be a family again." Then Galahad spoke. He didn't raise his voice. "Genevieve, you went to that venue without permission and switched your sister's entry. You tried to sabotage her. How is that a prank?" Genevieve's composure cracked for half a second. He'd never spoken to her like that before. "It was stupid, okay?" she said. "I know that, but the result is the result. The painting they judged was mine, and she's keeping everything." She turned to me, her eyes shiny, her voice thick. "You know this isn't right, deep down, you know. And here's the thing. For one horrible second, I felt the pull. I looked at my mother's face, begging for peace. I looked at the table of nice plates, $5,000 to make this go away. For a moment, I almost did it. Then Theo's hand rested on my knee under the table, warm and steady. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to, because in that same moment, I thought about my painting, the real one. The woman in the flooded sunroom, the water around her ankles, the coffee cup in her hand, the light through the window. 4 months of early mornings and late nights and mixing colors until my fingers were stained. And Genevieve took it down off the wall and threw it away like garbage. No, not tonight, not ever again. "You didn't make that painting as art," I said. "You made it as a weapon. You weren't trying to create something, you were trying to erase something. You went to that venue to take away the most important night of my career because you couldn't stand watching me succeed at something you quit." Genevieve opened her mouth. I held up my hand. "I'm not done." For the first time in our lives, she closed her mouth. I turned to Oakland and Galahad. "For 15 years, Genevieve has made comments about my art. She's called it a waste of time. She's asked when I'm getting a real job. She's made me feel small at every single family dinner, every holiday and every birthday, and you two never said a word. You smiled through it. You called it sibling stuff, but it wasn't sibling stuff. She's been trying to make me quit painting since we were teenagers. And when I didn't, when I actually got into the biggest competition of my life, she broke into the venue and tried to destroy everything I'd built." Oakland's eyes were glassy. Galahad was looking down at his plate. Genevieve leaned forward. "You're being dramatic. I made a mistake, but the painting that won was mine. You can't just keep the credit for work you didn't do." "I didn't enter your painting," I said. "You put it there. You walked into a competition venue you had no right to be in and you swapped a registered piece. That's not a prank, Genevieve. That's fraud. You're not the victim here. You're the person who got caught." Then I said the part I'd been saving. "And the competition knows." The room went still. They got an anonymous note questioning my entry. "I met with Margot Tremaine this week. In person. She knows someone tampered with my submission. She told me if that person comes forward, they'll be facing consequences. So if you sent that note, Genevieve, you should know they're looking for you now." Genevieve's face lost its color. Not slowly. It just went. "You told them?" "I didn't have to tell them anything. You did. You sent that anonymous message thinking it would get my prize taken away. All it did was put yourself on their radar." Genevieve looked at Oakland, waiting to be rescued. Oakland said nothing. She sat with her hands folded and her mouth in a tight line. Galahad spoke quietly. "Genevieve, I think you need to apologize to your sister." Her mouth opened. "Apologize? She's the one who..." She stopped, because there was nowhere left to go. Every door was shut, every angle blocked. Then her chin trembled. Not the practiced kind. Real. Her whole face crumpled inward and her voice cracked. "I kept your painting," she said. I blinked. "The real one. The woman in the flooded sunroom. I didn't throw it away. I was going to give it back after the show." "Why didn't you?" I asked. Genevieve looked down at the table. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because it was beautiful. And I hated that it was beautiful." Oakland put her hand over her mouth. Galahad closed his eyes. I looked at my sister, and for the first time, I saw the grief underneath the jealousy. 20 years of watching me do the thing she couldn't bring herself to keep doing. 20 years of saying art was a waste of time, because the truth, that she missed it, that she regretted quitting every single day, was too painful to say. But understanding her pain didn't undo the sabotage. It didn't erase 15 years of cutting me down. It didn't give me back 4 months. "I want my painting back, Genevieve," I said. She nodded, small and quick. "And I'm keeping the prize. All of it. The next time you feel jealous of something I made, maybe pick up a brush instead of tearing down what I built." I pushed my chair back and stood up. Theo stood with me. I walked around the table to Galahad and hugged him. He held on tight and didn't let go right away. I hugged Oakland. She grabbed my arms and looked at my face like she wanted to say something, but she just squeezed and let me go. I didn't hug Genevieve. I walked out of the house and into the evening air. I got in my car. Theo followed in his. The painting was still in her apartment. I would get it back next week. The prize cleared on Tuesday.